We're going to use critical thinking skills to solve some problems, an application problem with percentages involved. So on the first one here, it says, let's change the percent to a fraction, and then we want to change it to a decimal too. So this first one is 45%. Anytime we have a number that's in percent form, and we want to take it out of that form, there's a shortcut you can do, and it will put it in decimal. So if it's in percent form, we can move the decimal to the left 2 places, and it undoes the percent. Or we just divide by 100%. So we're going to take this 45% and we're going to divide by 100%. What happens is these percents reduce and leaves me with just 1 times that 45, 1 times that 100. Okay, now I cannot say this is my final answer because we can reduce it, and you always want to reduce it to simplest form. So what I see is it reduces by 5. We know that it's 5 times 9. Whoops, I wrote a 4. Let me write the 5 right quick. I just saw the 45 and I was thinking the 4, but it's 5. And then 5 times 20. So now I can reduce this by 5, right? And leaves me with 9 20s. This is my fraction. However, I'm going to write it in decimal. So you could do 2 ways on this decimal. I can take this 9 20s, use long division, and come up with the decimal. 20 will not go into 9, so I have to add a decimal. Put a 0 in front of that decimal. Bring the decimal to the top. Put a 0 behind this decimal. And now I can say 20 goes into 90 4 times. 4 times 20 is 80. We're going to subtract. We get 10. We're going to bring down another 0. And then we're going to say 20 goes into 100 5 times. Okay, so my decimal is 0.45. So you can use that method. However, I'm going to show you the shortcut. We're going to take that 45%. And to undo it, we grab the decimal, which in this case here, since you don't see it, it's actually in the back. We're going to move it to the left 2 places. So we're going to go 1, 2. So I get 0.45. Guys, always put a 0 in front of your decimal in this class. All right. Now let's do the next one. The next one is 50%. We're going to write it in fraction and in decimal form. So I got 50% divided by 100%. And the percents reduce, leaves me with 50 over 100. Well, I know 50 goes into itself 1 time, and 50 goes into 100 2 times. So here's my fraction. And we know a half is 0.5. We can use a shortcut method, but that is my decimal form. Now let's do this next one. I have 0.5%. I'm going to divide it by 100%. What happens? The percents reduce. Now I got 0.5 divided by 100. So this one looks a little more work involved. So I know if I want to put it in decimal, I mean, in order to put it in decimal, I still have to move the decimal 2 places to the left 1, 2. So I get 0.00, right? 5. So this is my decimal. If you look at it, it's 1, 2, 3 places. So I can take that 5 and write it over 1,000 because that's the thousands place. And let's reduce. Well, 5 goes into itself once, right? And it goes into 1,000. And you could double check if you're ever in doubt. So, oops, my pen, I'm gonna have to get my pen back on the screen. Sorry, guys. So, anyways, 5 goes into 1,200 times. So this is my fraction. Okay. Now let's solve our last one. Our last one is 66 2/3. So we know that the 2/3 in decimal form is going to give me 0.6 repeating. So we can do that later. Right now, I know that I could say I'm going to divide this by 100%, which is the same as saying 66 2/3 divided by 100%, and we're going to keep change flip. So I get 66 2/3 times 1/100, right? So we're just going to turn around and rewrite it another way. So let's just make it easier on ourselves. Let's go ahead and take this 66.6 repeating. So I'm going to write it as 66.7, because if I get to this 66.6 repeating, that means the number behind it is a 6. It's equal to or greater than 5. It's going to add 1 here, and it's going to cause it to go bump up. So it's approximately, okay? So I just rounded. And then when I divide it by 100, it doesn't come out as pretty. However, I get this fraction of 667 over 1,000. Again, the same rule that we applied here applies here. You know how we came up with our fraction here? So this one would be easier to put it in decimal form to solve. So this is my fraction. To get my decimal form here, I know that I'm dividing by that 100, so that means I'm moving this decimal here 2 places to the left. So I end up with 0.0667. So it would be easier to find your fraction based upon this decimal. Okay. So I tried to look at it 2 different ways. I'm not sure which way helps you the most, but if you ever have a percent in decimal form, and I would go to the decimal, I would undo the percentage by putting it in decimal form first, and then from there go to the fraction. Where the ones above it was easy to go to fractions than to decimals, okay? So whichever one's easier for you. The next one says we're going to change these numbers to a percent. So that means we need to multiply by 100%. If we multiply by 100%, the shortcut says grab the decimal, move it 2 places to the right. So I'm going to grab this decimal. I'm going to go 1, 2. So I get 27.5%. Or you can come over here and do the multiplication. Set it up whichever way works for you. Same here, you can multiply it by 100%, or we could just move the decimal 2 places to the right, and I get 200% here. Now let's solve this application problem here. It says, what is 0.5% of 520? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call what X. You can call it Y, you can call it whatever you want. Is means equal. Bring down the 0.05%. Of means multiply 520. You can use parentheses or a dot, whichever you want. Now, we cannot multiply or do anything while the 0.05 is still in percent. So I'm going to undo it by dividing by 100%, or use that shortcut method and move the decimal, right? When I move the decimal, I'm going to take the 0.05 and move it to the left 1, 2. So what I get now, I get 1, 2, 3 times that 520. Okay, so that 0.05 times, or, like I said, divided by that 100%, moving the decimal, gives me 0.0005 times that 520. I'm going to end up with 0.26. So that's the number of that. The next question, though, says, what is, so X equals, it says the percentage of some number, which of is multiplication of 125, which is 550. So we're trying to find some number here. And, I really could have said what's the percentage, what number, what I should have said here. My wording was off just a little bit. What number is, because is equal to. So y'all kind of see where I was going with this. So I'm going to let X be my variable here. X is going to be the what percentage. So in order to solve for this, I need to divide by that 125 because that coefficient needs to be a positive 1 on X. So now I get X percent of, I have that 550 divided by 125 gives me 4.4, but I need it in percent. So my next step will be multiply it by 100% or use shortcut and move the decimal to the right 2 places. So it gives me 440%.